In the dead of night, as flames engulfed the house, no one expected what happened next. A German shepherd, chained in the backyard for 6 years, was about to show the world that even the deepest scars can't destroy a hero's heart. What this dog did next not only saved lives, but uncovered a truth that would shake an entire community to its core. This is a story about courage, redemption, and the unbreakable spirit of one extraordinary dog that refused to let years of cruelty define its destiny. The autumn wind whispered through the streets of Cedar Grove, carrying the bitter scent of wood smoke from distant chimneys. Sarah Mitchell pulled her firefighter's jacket closer as she drove down Maple Street, her mind wandering after another long shift at Station 23. But tonight was different. Something about the smoke in the air felt wrong, setting off years of finely tuned instincts. If you're just joining us, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because what happened next would change not just Sarah's life, but an entire community forever. Sarah slowed her truck near the old Henderson place, a rundown Victorian home that had been the subject of neighborhood complaints for years. The smoke here was thicker, with an acrid edge that made her pulse quicken. As she rounded the corner, she saw it, wisps of dark smoke seeping from under the eaves, barely visible in the gathering dusk. But it wasn't the smoke that made her blood run cold. It was the sound, a deep, desperate barking coming from the backyard, punctuated by the metallic rattle of a chain. Sarah had heard rumors about the Henderson place. Neighbors whispered about the German shepherd kept chained in the backyard, but complaints to animal control had gone nowhere. The property belonged to James Henderson, a retired judge whose influence in Cedar Grove ran deep. The dog had been there for 6 years, a silent sentinel that no one dared help. Grabbing her phone and radio, Sarah called in the fire before cautiously approaching the house. The barking grew more urgent, a desperate plea that drove her toward the backyard gate. What she found there would haunt her dreams for years to come. The German shepherd stood at the limits of its chain, its once proud coat matted and dull, a heavy logging chain wrapped around its neck, secured to a rusted pole driven deep into the ground. 6 years of pacing had worn a perfect circle in the dirt. But it wasn't the dog's condition that struck Sarah most. It was its eyes. They held an intelligence, an awareness that seemed almost human. The smoke was thicker now, and Sarah could hear the distant wail of sirens. The dog's barking had changed, becoming more focused, deliberate. It wasn't just making noise, it was trying to tell her something. Following its gaze, Sarah noticed movement through the ground floor window. Her heart stopped. Through the smoke-streaked glass, she could make out a small figure moving inside. A child, no more than 6 or 7, presumably Henderson's grandchild. The judge himself had been hospitalized last week. Sarah remembered the station gossip. The boy must have been left with a sitter, but where were they? The German shepherd's barking reached a fever pitch as flames became visible through the window. Sarah radioed in the update. Child trapped inside, possible other occupants. But she knew help would take precious minutes to arrive. Minutes they might not have. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because what this chained hero did next defied everything we thought we knew about loyalty and courage. As Sarah assessed her options, she noticed something remarkable. The German shepherd wasn't trying to retreat from the growing heat. Instead, it strained against its chain, muscles rippling beneath its neglected coat, trying to move closer to the house, closer to danger, closer to saving a life. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Now back to the story. The dog's eyes met Sarah's, and in that moment she understood. This wasn't just a trapped animal. This was a guardian who had spent 6 years watching, waiting, protecting in the only way it could. Now, with flames threatening the home it had guarded for so long, The German Shepherd was about to prove that chains could bind the body, but never the spirit. What happened in the next few minutes would not only change Sarah's life forever, but would uncover a truth about the Henderson family that had been buried for years. A truth that would make this German Shepherd story of heroism and redemption touch hearts around the world. The flames grew higher as Sarah made a decision that would set in motion a chain of events none of them could have predicted. The true story of what happened that night and the shocking secrets it revealed was about to begin. Time seemed to freeze as Sarah Mitchell stared at the burning house, the German Shepherd's intense gaze fixed on her. In her 15 years as a firefighter, she'd never faced a decision quite like this. The chain binding the dog looked solid enough to secure a ship, but the animal's determination was undeniable. Somewhere inside, a child's life hung in the balance. If you've just joined us, don't forget to subscribe, because what happened next would challenge everything Sarah thought she knew about courage and redemption. Without hesitation, Sarah sprinted to her truck, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The toolbox behind her seat held what she needed, heavy-duty bolt cutters she kept for emergencies. The German Shepherd watched her every move, its barking, now focused and deliberate, as if coordinating with her actions. The chain resisted at first, years of rust fighting against the bolt cutter's jaws. The dog stood perfectly still, understanding the gravity of the moment. With a metallic snap that seemed to echo through the chaos, the chain finally gave way. 6 years of captivity ended in a single moment. But the German Shepherd didn't bolt. It didn't run for freedom. Instead, it turned immediately toward the house, its movements showing a surprising agility despite years of confinement. Sarah followed, her firefighter's training warring with her instincts. The dog seemed to know exactly where it was going. The back door was locked, but the German Shepherd's powerful frame made quick work of it. As they entered, Sarah marveled at the dog's behavior. It stayed low, just as trained rescue dogs did, moving with purpose through the smoke-filled rooms. How did it know to do this? The smoke was thickening, making visibility poor even at floor level. Sarah could hear the approaching sirens, but they still seemed too far away. The heat was intensifying, and somewhere above them, wood creaked ominously. The German Shepherd paused, tilting its head as if listening, then suddenly changed direction, heading toward what appeared to be a study. That's when Sarah heard it, a faint cough coming from behind a heavy oak desk. The dog was already there, nudging aside a decorative panel to reveal a small space. Inside, a young boy huddled, barely conscious from the smoke. But he wasn't. Alone. Beside him lay an unconscious woman, presumably the sitter, who had apparently hidden with him from the fire. The German Shepherd's behavior changed instantly. It positioned itself beside the woman while looking at Sarah expectantly. The message was clear. "Get the boy. I'll handle her." Sarah didn't question it. She scooped up the child just as the sound of breaking glass announced her colleague's arrival. What happened next would leave even veteran firefighters speechless. The German Shepherd grabbed the unconscious woman's sleeve with surprising gentleness, beginning to drag her toward the exit. Its movements were careful but urgent, navigating around obstacles with uncanny precision. Behind them, flames had reached the study entrance, cutting off their original escape route. But the dog adjusted immediately, pulling the woman toward a different door. Sarah followed with the boy, trusting this unlikely guide. Somehow the German Shepherd seemed to know the house's layout intimately, leading them through a series of rooms towards safety. They emerged through a side door just as the first fire truck arrived. The German Shepherd didn't stop until the woman was well away from the house, releasing her only when paramedics rushed forward. As emergency crews swarmed the scene, Sarah noticed something odd about the dog's behavior. It kept returning to the burning house, barking at a specific second-floor window. If you're touched by this story so far, make sure to hit that like button, because what they discovered next would unravel a mystery that had haunted Cedar Grove for over a decade. Sarah watched as the German Shepherd's actions became more insistent, its barks taking on a different tone. Something was still wrong. The dog that had just saved 2 lives wasn't finished yet. Its eyes held a knowledge that spoke of more secrets, hidden within those burning walls, secrets that the flames were threatening to destroy forever. Sarah's firefighting instincts warred with her growing certainty that the German Shepherd was trying to tell them something crucial. The dog's desperate focus on that second-floor window couldn't be ignored. Her colleagues had already started their systematic search of the house, but the dog's behavior suggested they might be missing something vital. Before we reveal what happened next, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, because tomorrow's video will show you something that will leave you speechless. Fire Chief Robert Martinez arrived on scene, immediately taking command. Sarah grabbed his arm, pointing to the German Shepherd's peculiar behavior. "Chief, that dog just saved 2 lives. It knew exactly where to find them, and now it's trying to tell us something else." Martinez had been fighting fires for 30 years, and he'd learned to trust intuition, both human and animal. "Which window?" he asked, following the dog's gaze. The German Shepherd's barking intensified, as if understanding it was finally being heard. The window in question belonged to what appeared to be a home office. Through the smoke and flames, they could make out the shapes of filing cabinets and a large desk. The fire was spreading rapidly now, threatening to consume whatever secrets that room might hold. "Get a ladder up there, now," Martinez ordered. "Full protective gear. We go. In fast." The German Shepherd watched intently as firefighters positioned their equipment, its posture rigid with anticipation. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against more than just the flames. The rescue team accessed the window, immediately encountering intense heat and thick smoke. The German Shepherd's barking reached a fever pitch as they disappeared inside. Moments later, they emerged with several metal boxes and what looked like old leather-bound journals. But it was what they found next that would shake Cedar Grove to its core, hidden behind a false wall panel revealed only when the heat warped. The surrounding wood was a small safe. The German Shepherd's barking changed to a low whine as they carried it out. Sarah noticed something else too. The dog's attention had shifted to the unconscious woman being loaded into an ambulance. There was recognition in its eyes, but not the kind you'd expect from a backyard guard dog. This was different. This was personal. The woman, they would soon learn, was Lisa Cooper, age 42. She wasn't just a babysitter. She was a former legal secretary who had worked for Judge Henderson 6 years ago, right up until the day the German Shepherd was first chained in that backyard. As paramedics worked to stabilize Lisa and the boy, Detective James Wong arrived on scene. One look at the safe and the rescued documents, and his expression darkened. "We've been trying to build a case against Henderson for years," he muttered to Sarah, "but every warrant request was blocked." The German Shepherd hadn't moved from its spot, its eyes now fixed on the safe as firefighters worked to control the blaze. 6 years of chains hadn't dimmed its intelligence or its purpose. If anything, Sarah realized, the dog's confinement might have been meant to keep it silent, a witness that couldn't speak but had never forgotten. Hit that notification bell, because what they found in those rescued documents would expose a conspiracy that went far beyond one corrupt judge and reveal the true reason why this heroic German Shepherd had been condemned to years of solitary confinement. As the fire finally began to yield to the firefighters' efforts, Sarah knelt beside the German Shepherd. Its coat was singed from the rescue, but its bearing remained noble, alert. Up close, she could see scars under its matted fur, old wounds that told of abuse beyond mere neglect. Lisa Cooper was regaining consciousness in the ambulance, and her first words sent chills down Sarah's spine. "The dog," she whispered, her voice hoarse from smoke. After all these years, he still remembered. He still protected the evidence. Sarah looked back at the German shepherd, seeing it in a new light. This wasn't just a neglected animal that had risen to the occasion. This was a guardian who had endured years of imprisonment, watching and waiting, knowing that someday the truth would need to emerge. The safe and documents were quickly taken into police custody, but the German shepherd's role in this unfolding drama was far from over. As dawn broke over Cedar Grove, casting long shadows through the smoke-filled air, Sarah realized that this remarkable dog had not only saved lives, it had set in motion events that would uncover a darkness that had plagued their town for far too long. What they discovered next would make international headlines and transform their understanding of not just one dog's loyalty, but the depths of human corruption and the price of silence. Detective Wong set up a command post in the Cedar Grove police station's conference room. The rescued documents spread across the table. The German shepherd, still unnamed, but now wearing a borrowed K9 unit collar, lay quietly in the corner, watching every move. Sarah had insisted on bringing the dog. Something about its behavior suggested it was more than just a witness to whatever secrets those papers held. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe, because the truth about this extraordinary dog's past is about to change everything you thought you knew about loyalty and justice. Lisa Cooper sat wrapped in a shock blanket, her hands trembling as she sipped water. The young boy, identified as Judge Henderson's grandson, Tommy, was safe at the hospital with his mother. But Lisa's eyes kept drifting to the German shepherd, tears welling up every time she looked at it. "His name is Max," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was a police K9 before everything changed." The dog's ears perked up at the name, hearing it for the first time in 6 years. Sarah watched as Max's tail gave a slight wag, a ghost of his former life emerging. Detective Wong paused in his examination of the documents. "A police K9? There's no record of—" Lisa cut him off with a bitter laugh. "Of course there's no record. They erased everything when they killed his handler." The room fell silent except for the gentle whir of the air conditioning. Max stood up, moving to Lisa's side, placing his head gently on her knee. The gesture seemed to give her strength to continue. 6 years ago, Max and his handler, Officer David Chen, were investigating a series of suspicious deaths connected to Cedar Grove's most prominent families. They discovered evidence of money laundering, blackmail, and worse. But before they could file their report, Lisa's voice broke. Max pressed closer to her, offering silent support. Sarah noticed how the dog's posture had changed. Alert, professional, as if years of neglect were falling away to reveal the highly trained officer he'd once been. "David was killed in what they called a routine traffic stop," Lisa continued. "Judge Henderson handled the case personally, ruled it an accident. I was his secretary. I knew better." The documents David gathered, everything he and Max had uncovered, Henderson kept it all in that office, safe. Make sure to hit that like button, because what they found in those rescued documents would shake law enforcement across 3 states and reveal a conspiracy that went back decades. Detective Wong was already examining the contents of the safe, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. Bank records, offshore accounts, photographs. He paused, pulling out a USB drive that had been hidden in a false bottom. And this. Sarah watched as Max's attention fixed on the drive. The dog's behavior throughout the fire suddenly made more sense. He hadn't just been acting on instinct. He'd been purposefully leading them to specific locations, protecting evidence he'd watched his partner gather 6 years ago. But why keep Max alive? Sarah wondered aloud. Why not just— She couldn't finish the sentence. Lisa's face darkened. Control. Power. Henderson kept him chained where David used to live, a daily reminder to everyone involved of what happens when you challenge the system. He made sure I saw Max every day, knowing I couldn't help him without exposing everything. Max moved between them, his bearing now unmistakably that of a trained police dog. Despite years of abuse, his intelligence and training had remained intact, waiting for the right moment to complete his partner's final mission. Detective Wong connected the USB drive to a laptop. What they saw next made Lisa gasp and Sarah's blood run cold. The files contained not just evidence of corruption, but a complete surveillance network that had controlled Cedar Grove for generations. But it was the video file, dated the night of Officer Chen's death, that would change everything. Max watched the screen intently, a low growl building in his throat as the truth his partner died protecting finally came to light. The German shepherds. 6 years of silent vigilance were about to expose a web of corruption that would reach the highest levels of state government. And his story of loyalty and sacrifice would inspire a movement that would transform not just Cedar Grove, but police departments across the country. The conference room fell silent as the video began to play. The footage was dashcam quality, showing Officer David Chen's final traffic stop. Max sat perfectly still, his eyes fixed on his former partner's image, watching the truth unfold after 6 years of forced silence. Before we reveal what that video showed, hit subscribe, because tomorrow's video will take you behind the scenes of how this incredible story ends. "That's not a routine traffic stop," Detective Wong said, leaning closer to the screen. "Look at how they boxed him in." The footage showed 3 unmarked vehicles surrounding Officer Chen's patrol car on a deserted stretch of road. Max's low growl grew stronger as figures emerged from the vehicles. "I recognize them," Lisa whispered. "That's Henderson's private security team, but that man in the suit..." She pointed to a figure staying in the shadows. "That's State Senator Morrison." Sarah watched as the scene unfolded. Officer Chen had stepped out of his vehicle, Max beside him. Even then, the German shepherd's protective instincts were evident. The audio was poor, but Chen's voice came through clearly. "I have copies of everything. You can't bury this." What happened next explained everything about Max's years of confinement. As the confrontation escalated, Chen had managed to slip something into Max's specialized K9 vest, the same vest that had disappeared the night of his death. The dog had escaped during the struggle, following what must have been his final command: protect the evidence. "They couldn't find him for 3 days," Lisa recalled, her hand resting on Max's head. "Henderson's men searched everywhere. When they finally caught him, the vest was gone. That's why they kept him alive, kept him where they could watch him. They knew he knew where it was." Detective Wong pulled up another file from the USB drive. Chen was investigating more than just local corruption. Look at these shipping manifests, bank transfers. Cedar Grove was just one part of a multi-state operation. Politicians, judges, police chiefs, all on the payroll. Max suddenly stood, his attention shifting to the conference room window. Moments later, they heard vehicles approaching. "State police," Wong said, checking his phone. "And FBI. I made some calls after we found the safe. This goes way beyond our jurisdiction. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, because what Max did next would lead investigators to the final piece of evidence that would bring down an entire criminal empire." As federal agents filed into the station, Max's demeanor changed. He moved to the door with purpose, looking back at Sarah and Lisa expectantly. The same look he'd had during the fire. He had more to show them. "He wants us to follow him," Sarah realized. Lisa nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. David always said Max was the smartest dog he'd ever trained. He wasn't just a partner, he was family. With federal agents and Detective Wong in tow, they followed Max out into the early morning light. The German shepherd moved with renewed energy, leading them back toward the burned Henderson property. But instead of approaching the house, he turned down an overgrown path behind the property. The old hunting trails, Lisa explained. David used to walk them with Max every morning. Said it was the only place in town where they could talk without being overheard. Max stopped at what appeared to be an abandoned well house, partially hidden by years of vegetation. His paw scratched at a specific spot near the foundation. Wong and the federal agents quickly began clearing the area. Buried beneath 6 years of soil and roots, they found Officer Chen's K9 vest, and inside it, preserved in waterproof bags, was a complete copy of his investigation files, along with a personal letter that would ensure justice couldn't be denied again. The German shepherd stood watch as they excavated his long-protected evidence, his mission finally nearing completion. But Max's story was far from over. His years of loyal sacrifice were about to inspire a movement that would change how law enforcement across the country handled both animal abuse cases and police corruption. Sarah looked at the dog who had suffered so much, yet never lost his sense of duty. Tomorrow would bring headlines, arrests, and the beginning of a massive federal investigation. But right now, Max had earned something he'd been denied for 6 years. The right to rest, knowing his partner's final case was finally in the right hands. The sun rose over Cedar Grove, marking the end of Max's longest watch. But his legacy was just beginning to unfold. The next 48 hours transformed. Cedar Grove, federal agents swarmed the town, serving warrants and making arrests. State Senator Morrison was taken into custody during a live press conference. Judge Henderson, still in the hospital, found his room suddenly under federal guard. But it was the contents of Officer Chen's letter that truly stunned the community. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe, because what this brave German shepherd exposed goes deeper than anyone could have imagined. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My name is Officer David Chen, and if you're reading this, I didn't survive bringing this conspiracy to light. Sarah read from a copy of the letter, her voice thick with emotion. Max lay at her feet in the police station, his eyes never leaving. The paper that carried his partner's final words. The letter detailed how Chen and Max had uncovered a network that used Cedar Grove's court system to facilitate everything from money laundering to witness intimidation. Local businesses were being extorted, criminal cases were being fixed, and anyone who questioned the system faced severe consequences. Max isn't just my partner, he's my failsafe. The letter continued. If anything happens to me, he knows what to do. They underestimate him because he's a dog. That's their mistake. His intelligence and loyalty are my greatest weapons against their corruption. Lisa, who hadn't left Max's side since the fire, wiped tears from her eyes. David trained him to recognize specific people, documents, even to understand when conversations were suspicious. Max wasn't just a police dog, he was an undercover officer who could go anywhere without raising alarms. The national media descended on Cedar Grove as the story broke. Images of Max, still bearing the marks of his 6-year confinement, splashed across television screens and social media. His story of loyalty and sacrifice struck a chord that transcended the usual news cycle. Don't forget to hit that like button, because the changes Max's story inspired are still transforming communities across America today. FBI Special Agent Catherine Martinez took charge of the expanding investigation. Officer Chen created a sophisticated network of evidence caches, she explained to Sarah. Max was trained to lead trusted individuals to each location if specific conditions were met. The fire at Henderson's house wasn't just an emergency, it was an opportunity Max had been waiting for. The young boy Tommy's presence in the house that night wasn't an accident either. Lisa finally revealed that she had been secretly gathering her own evidence over the years, watching Max, understanding why he remained chained but never broken. When she learned of a plan to clean up loose ends before a federal audit, she knew she had to act. "I took Tommy there because I knew Max would protect him," she admitted. "What I didn't know was that Henderson had ordered the fire to destroy the evidence. They thought they could make it look like an accident, blame it on old wiring. They never expected Max to save us and expose everything at the same time." Sarah watched as K9 units from across the state came to honor Max. The German Shepherd's bearing had completely transformed. Gone was the defeated prisoner they'd first encountered. In his place stood a proud police dog who had endured years of suffering to complete his partner's final mission. The evidence Max protected led to arrests in 3 states. Judges, politicians, police officials. The corruption network crumbled as more witnesses came forward, inspired by a dog's unwavering loyalty. But it was Max's impact on police procedure that would prove most lasting. Departments across the country began reviewing cold cases involving K9 officers. New protocols were established for protecting police dogs, both during and after their service. Animal welfare laws were strengthened, with Max's case cited as a turning point in how society views the intelligence and rights of working dogs. But in Cedar Grove, Max's influence was even more personal. As federal agents continued their work, the German Shepherd took on a new role, one that would help heal the very community his years of sacrifice had helped cleanse. The question now wasn't just about justice being served. It was about how one dog's extraordinary devotion would transform not just a town, but the entire way America thinks about loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bond between partners dedicated to protecting others. Cedar Grove Police Chief Michael Torres stood before a crowd gathered in the town square, Max sitting proudly at his side. The German Shepherd's coat had begun to regain its luster after weeks of proper care, though the scars from his years of confinement remained visible, a testament to his sacrifice. Before we reveal what happened next, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's video will show you how Max's story reaches all the way to the White House. "Today, we don't just honor a hero," Torres announced, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "We acknowledge a debt that can never fully be repaid." He knelt beside Max, presenting him with a custom-made police badge. "Officer Max Chen, you are officially reinstated to active duty, with your full rank and honors restored." Sarah watched from the front row as Max accepted the badge with dignified grace. Lisa Cooper stood beside her, now serving as a key witness in the federal investigation. The transformation in both woman and dog over the past weeks had been remarkable. "The investigation has uncovered evidence of corruption spanning 3 decades, Agent Martinez updated the crowd. "Thanks to Max's preserved evidence, we've secured indictments against 47 individuals, including 3 state judges, 2 mayors, and a state senator." But it wasn't just about criminal justice. Max's story had sparked something deeper. In Cedar Grove, the German Shepherd's unwavering loyalty, despite years of abuse, had become a symbol of hope and resilience. Make sure you've hit that notification bell, because what Max did with his freedom would inspire a movement that's still growing today. Instead of retiring, Max began working with Sarah at the fire station, using his remarkable intelligence to train as a search and rescue dog. His ability to navigate through the Henderson house fire hadn't been luck. It was his police training combined with years of observing the property during his confinement. "He's teaching our other dogs," Sarah explained to a documentary crew that had come to film Max's story. "It's like he understands that his experience, even the painful years, gave him unique knowledge that can help save lives." The German Shepherd's impact on Cedar Grove's children proved especially powerful. Schools invited Max and Sarah for special programs about courage and perseverance. Kids who had seen him chained in that backyard now watched in awe as he demonstrated search and rescue techniques. "My grandfather was wrong about everything," Tommy Henderson said during one of these sessions, the young boy's words carrying a weight beyond his years. Max wasn't chained because he was dangerous. He was chained because he was brave. Lisa established a foundation in Officer Chen's name, with Max as its inspiration. The Chen-Max K9 Protection Act began gaining support in state legislatures, proposing stronger protections for police dogs and increased penalties for those who harm them. But perhaps the most profound change was happening quietly in the daily life of Cedar Grove. People who had once looked away from corruption out of fear found courage in Max's example, the German shepherd who had endured 6 years of silence. To protect the truth had taught them that integrity doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet persistence of doing what's right day after day, no matter the cost. Sarah often found Max sitting at the fire station's lookout point, his noble profile silhouetted against the sunset. In these moments, she could see both the battle-scarred survivor and the proud police dog he had never stopped being. "He's not just healing himself," Lisa observed one evening, watching Max work with a group of young K9 trainees. "He's healing all of us, showing us that it's never too late to stand up for what's right." The German shepherd's story was far from over. As Cedar Grove rebuilt itself in the wake of the corruption scandal, Max's influence would reach far beyond the town's borders, touching lives in ways that would redefine the relationship between communities and those who protect them. No one could have predicted that a chained dog's act of courage during a fire would expose decades of corruption. But Max had proven that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who never give up, even when victory seems impossible. As autumn turned to winter in Cedar Grove, Max's story caught the attention of national lawmakers. The German shepherd's journey from chained survivor to hometown hero had struck a chord that resonated far beyond their small community. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe, because the impact of this extraordinary dog's courage is about to reach the highest levels of government. Senator Maria Rodriguez stood before the Senate Judiciary Committee, a photo of Max displayed on the screen behind her. "This isn't just about one dog or one town," she declared. "This is about acknowledging that our four-legged officers deserve better protection under the law." Max himself sat in the gallery beside Sarah and Lisa, his presence commanding attention. Even in Washington, his story had become a rallying point for police reform, animal welfare, and anti-corruption legislation all at once. 6 years chained in that backyard, he protected evidence that would expose widespread corruption, Rodriguez continued. "If we had stronger K9 protection laws, Officer Chen's murder might have been prevented and Max's suffering could have been avoided." The proposed legislation, now formally titled the Max Chen Law, went far beyond protecting police dogs. It established new oversight procedures for local justice systems, created whistleblower protections, and mandated independent investigations when K9 officers or their handlers reported suspicious activities. Don't forget to hit that like button, because what happened next would change police departments across America forever. Back in Cedar Grove, Max's daily routine had evolved into something extraordinary. Each morning began with training sessions at the fire station, where he helped prepare other dogs for search and rescue work. His unique experience navigating the Henderson house fire had led to new protocols for K9 emergency response. "He understands things other dogs don't," Sarah explained to a group of visiting K9 trainers. "It's not just about finding people. It's about reading situations, anticipating dangers, making split-second decisions." The German shepherd's work with local schools had expanded into a full-fledged educational program. Hero's Heart, named after Max, taught children about courage, integrity, and standing up against bullying and wrongdoing. Tommy Henderson, still processing his grandfather's role in the corruption scandal, found particular solace in these sessions. The boy who had once been saved from the fire now sat for hours with Max, sometimes talking, sometimes just finding comfort in the dog's steady presence. Max shows us that bad things don't have to make you bad, Tommy told his classmates during a Hero's Heart session. You can go through really hard stuff and still choose to help others. Lisa Cooper, meanwhile, had become a powerful advocate for justice system reform. Her testimony, combined with the evidence Max had preserved, was dismantling corrupt networks across multiple states. Every time I doubted myself during those 6 years, Lisa shared at a law enforcement conference, seeing Max maintain his dignity despite everything. It gave me courage to keep gathering evidence, to keep believing truth would prevail. But it was Max's impact on other K9 officers that proved most profound. Police dogs, who had been retired due to trauma or injury, found new purpose through his example, training alongside him for search and rescue work or therapy roles. The German Shepherd, who had once been chained and silenced, was now teaching others that limitations could become strengths, that scars could become sources of wisdom, that past suffering could fuel future service. As winter settled over Cedar Grove, Max's evening patrols with Sarah took on an almost mythical quality. Citizens would watch the German Shepherd pass by, his proud bearing and gentle demeanor a living reminder that courage comes in many forms. The quiet hero who had waited 6 years to complete his partner's mission was showing the world that sometimes the greatest acts of loyalty unfold not in moments of dramatic rescue, but in the patient perseverance of hearts that refuse to be broken. The National Police K9 Training Center in Virginia had never seen anything quite like it. Max stood at attention before a group of trainers and handlers, his bearing that of a seasoned instructor rather than a demonstration subject. Sarah and Lisa had been invited to share his extraordinary methods with the next generation of police dogs and their partners. Before we reveal the revolutionary changes Max inspired, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's video will show you how his techniques are saving lives across the country. Traditional K9 training focuses on commands and responses, Sarah explained to the gathered officers. But Max shows us there's another level, teaching dogs to think independently, to make complex decisions when their handlers can't guide them. The German Shepherd demonstrated by navigating a specially designed obstacle course, not just following the planned route, but identifying and marking potential hazards along the way. His ability to assess situations and adapt his response had surpassed anything in the training manual. This goes beyond search and rescue, Lisa added. Max survived 6 years essentially working undercover. He maintained his training, gathered intelligence, and protected evidence while appearing to be nothing more than a neglected yard dog. The implications revolutionized how departments thought about K9 capabilities. Max's story proved that police dogs could handle complex long-term assignments while demonstrating judgment that bordered on tactical reasoning. Hit that notification bell, because what these new training methods accomplished in their first year will leave you speechless. Back in Cedar Grove, Max's influence had begun healing deeper wounds. The town had struggled with trust in law enforcement since the corruption scandal broke. But the German Shepherd's presence at community events bridged the gap between citizens and police in ways humans couldn't manage alone. He remembers everyone, Tommy observed during a community picnic. Even people who walked past him when he was chained up and couldn't help. He doesn't hold grudges. He just wants to make things better now. The Max Foundation had expanded its mission, now offering support for both retired police dogs and officers dealing with department corruption. Max's unique perspective, having lost his handler to corruption while maintaining his duty, provided insight into both animal welfare and police integrity issues. Sarah watched as Max worked with a newly retired canine officer struggling with PTSD. The German Shepherd's approach was gentle but purposeful, drawing on his own experiences of trauma and recovery to guide others through their healing process. He's not just teaching them how to work again, a police psychologist noted. He's showing them how to trust again, how to find new purpose after loss and betrayal. The impact on police training expanded beyond K9 units. Max's story of maintaining his mission through years of adversity became a case study in resilience and ethical commitment. Police academies across the country began incorporating his example into their curriculum. Lisa, who had watched Max during his years of confinement, found herself increasingly in demand as a speaker on police reform. "We focus so much on physical evidence," she told a law enforcement conference. "But Max showed us that integrity and loyalty are themselves a kind of evidence, one that can't be destroyed or corrupted." The German Shepherd's evening rounds now included stops at Cedar Grove's youth center, where troubled teens found in him a non-judgmental presence who understood their struggles. Kids who had faced abuse or neglect particularly connected with Max's story of overcoming trauma through service to others. As winter deepened, Max's influence continued to grow in unexpected ways. His combination of battle-earned wisdom and unfailing compassion was transforming not just how police dogs were trained, but how communities thought about recovery, justice, and the unbreakable bonds of loyalty. The healing he inspired went far beyond Cedar Grove's borders, touching lives across the country and proving that sometimes the greatest teachers are those who have endured the most, while keeping their hearts open to hope. Winter melted into spring, and with the changing season came transformations no one could have predicted. Police departments nationwide were reporting unprecedented success with what they now called the Max Protocol, a revolutionary approach to K9 training that emphasized independent thinking and ethical decision-making in police dogs. If you're just joining us, hit subscribe, because the changes this extraordinary German Shepherd inspired are reshaping law enforcement across America. At the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, researchers had begun studying Max's unique capabilities. "What we're seeing defies conventional understanding of canine cognition," Dr. Emily Chen explained, watching Max work with a group of new K9 recruits. "He's not just following training, he's teaching concepts, demonstrating complex problem-solving strategies." The German Shepherd's influence extended beyond training methods. Departments that adopted the Max Protocol reported stronger community relationships, with police dogs serving as bridges between law enforcement and citizens. "It's changing how we think about partnership," Sarah shared during a national police conference. "Max showed us that true loyalty isn't blind obedience. It's standing firm in what's right, even when your partner can't be there to guide you. And make sure to hit that notification bell, because tomorrow we'll reveal how Max's methods saved an entire police department from a corruption scandal that nobody saw coming." In Cedar Grove, the changes were even more profound. The Chen Max Foundation had established a first-of-its-kind rehabilitation center for retired police dogs, with Max serving as both inspiration and lead therapy dog. His gentle approach to traumatized animals drew attention from veterinary behaviorists worldwide. Lisa Cooper, now serving as the foundation's director, watched Max work with a recently retired bomb detection dog struggling with anxiety. "He knows exactly how to reach them," she observed. "It's like he can speak directly to their experiences, show them there's life and purpose after trauma." Tommy Henderson, growing into his role as a youth advocate, spent afternoons at the center, helping with the rehabilitation program. "Max teaches us that being hurt doesn't mean you have to stay hurt," he explained to visitors. "You can use your hard times to help others have better times." The German Shepherd's daily routine had evolved into a masterclass in community healing. Mornings were spent training new K9 units, afternoons dedicated to therapy work, and evenings patrolling with Sarah, each role building on his unique experiences and wisdom. "He's rewriting the book on what's possible," Chief Torres admitted, watching Max demonstrate advanced search techniques to visiting officers. "We used to think police dogs were tools to be deployed. Max proves they're partners capable of moral judgment and independent action." The impact on police reform reached beyond K9 units. Departments began incorporating Max's story into ethics, training, using his years of silent witness as a powerful example of maintaining integrity under pressure. Sarah noticed subtle changes in Max too. The last traces of his confinement had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence that drew others to him. His eyes, once haunted by years of trauma, now held a peace that came from turning suffering into service. As spring flowers bloomed in Cedar Grove, Max's legacy continued to grow in ways that touched both policies and hearts. The German Shepherd, who had endured 6 years of chains, was now freely offering his hard-earned wisdom to help others break their own bonds of fear and trauma. He had become more than a symbol of loyalty or a catalyst for change. He was a living testament to the transformative power of choosing love over bitterness, service over surrender, and hope over despair. The Senate chamber fell silent as Max walked down the aisle, his bearing regal yet humble. Beside him, Sarah and Lisa prepared to testify before the Congressional Committee on Law Enforcement Reform. The German Shepherd's story had sparked a national conversation that could no longer be ignored. If you're touched by this story so far, make sure to subscribe, because what happened next would change animal welfare laws forever. "We're not just here to talk about one heroic dog," Senator Rodriguez began, gesturing to Max. "We're here to discuss how his experience exposes critical gaps in our justice system and animal welfare laws. The proposed legislation, now known as the Max Chen Comprehensive Justice Reform Act, went far beyond protecting police dogs. It established new oversight mechanisms for local courts, created protections for whistleblowers, and mandated independent investigations of suspected corruption. Max didn't just preserve evidence, Lisa testified, her voice steady. He showed us that corruption thrives in silence, and that true loyalty sometimes means standing alone for years, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. Don't forget to hit that like button, because the changes this law set in motion are still transforming communities today. Back in Cedar Grove, the Chen Max Foundation had become a national hub for both police reform and animal welfare advocacy. Departments across the country sent representatives to learn the Max protocol, while rescued animals found healing through his unique therapy approach. "He works with them differently," Sarah explained to a group of veterinary students. "It's like he knows exactly what each animal needs, whether it's confidence, trust, or just quiet understanding." Tommy Henderson, now a regular volunteer at the foundation, had started a youth program called Max's Messengers, teaching kids about animal welfare and civic responsibility. "Max shows us that you don't have to be big or powerful to make a difference," he told his young charges. "You just have to be brave enough to stand up for what's right." The German Shepherd's influence on police training continued to evolve. Departments reported that K9 units trained in the Max protocol showed enhanced decision-making abilities and stronger bonds with their communities. "He's teaching us to rethink everything we thought we knew about K9 capabilities," Chief Torres shared during a training seminar. "These aren't just working dogs anymore. They're partners capable of complex moral choices." As spring bloomed in Cedar Grove, Max's evening patrols had become something of a local tradition. Citizens would watch him pass with Sarah, seeing, in his proud bearing and gentle demeanor, a living reminder that integrity and compassion could overcome even the darkest circumstances. The therapy program at the foundation had expanded to include work with veterans and trauma survivors. Max's ability to connect with those who had faced betrayal or abuse proved remarkably effective in helping them rebuild trust. He carries his scars with such dignity, a veteran observed during a session. Shows us they're not something to hide. They're proof we survived, proof we didn't let them break us. Lisa noticed that Max seemed to have an uncanny ability to sense when someone was struggling with moral decisions. The German Shepherd would often seek out officers wrestling with ethical dilemmas, offering his silent presence as both comfort and reminder of the importance of standing firm in what's right. As the sun set over Cedar Grove each evening, Max's influence continued to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond the town's borders. The dog who had maintained his duty through 6 years of chains was now freely teaching others about courage, healing, and the unbreakable spirit of true loyalty. The spring brought unexpected visitors to Cedar Grove. Representatives from police departments across 5 countries had come to observe what the international media was calling the Max effect, a revolutionary approach to law enforcement that started with one loyal German Shepherd's extraordinary journey. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe, because what happened next would transform police departments around the world. On a sunny morning at the Max Foundation's training center, Max demonstrated his methods before an audience of international K9 trainers. The German Shepherd moved through a complex scenario involving hidden evidence, ethical choices, and civilian interaction. Traditional police dog training focuses on obedience and task completion, Sarah explained to the observers. Max teaches us to develop their capacity for independent judgment. These dogs aren't just following commands, they're making ethical decisions. A trainer from Germany's elite K9 unit watched in amazement as Max showed a young police dog how to indicate the presence of evidence without disturbing it. "This is beyond anything we've seen," he admitted. "He's not just demonstrating, he's actually teaching." Don't forget to hit that like button, because the international impact of Max's methods is about to change everything we thought we knew about police dogs. Lisa Cooper had been documenting every aspect of Max's work, developing what would become the official Max Protocol Manual. What makes his approach unique is how it combines tactical training with emotional intelligence, she explained. Max understands that effective police work requires both skill and compassion. The evidence was undeniable. Departments that adopted Max's methods reported dramatic improvements in both operational success and community relations. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Police dogs trained under the protocol showed unprecedented abilities in complex decision-making situations. Tommy Henderson, now a regular volunteer at the foundation, had become an eloquent advocate for Max's approach. "He teaches dogs like he teaches people," the boy observed. "It's not just about what to do, it's about understanding why you're doing it." The German Shepherd's influence extended beyond law enforcement. Mental health professionals studied his therapy work with traumatized animals and humans, amazed by his ability to connect with those who had suffered abuse or neglect. Max creates a bridge between trauma and healing, noted Dr. Rachel Martinez, a leading veterinary behaviorist. His own experience of maintaining his purpose through years of confinement offers hope to others who feel trapped by their past. Sarah watched as Max worked with a group of rescued dogs, his patience and wisdom evident in every interaction. The scars from his years of chains had faded, but the strength they represented continued to inspire others. Back at the fire station, Max's search and rescue training program had become a model for departments nationwide. His unique combination of police training and survival experience brought new depth to emergency response protocols. Chief Torres, addressing an international police conference via video, put it simply, Max isn't just changing how we train dogs, he's changing how we think about partnership, loyalty, and justice itself. As spring flowers bloomed around the old Henderson property, now transformed into a training center, Max's legacy continued to grow. The German Shepherd who had protected the truth through 6 years of silence was now teaching others to speak up for justice. His story had become more than a tale of survival or even redemption. It was proof that the deepest wounds could become the most powerful sources of healing for others. The United Nations Law Enforcement Training Center in Geneva wasn't a place easily impressed by individual success stories. But on this bright spring morning, Max's presence commanded the attention of police officials from 30 different countries, all gathered to learn from a German shepherd who had changed the face of law enforcement. Before we reveal what happened at this historic gathering, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow's video will show you how Max's methods are now saving lives in conflict zones worldwide. What we're witnessing isn't just innovation in police training, announced Director Jean-Pierre Baptiste. This is a fundamental shift in how we understand the capabilities of working dogs and their role in justice systems worldwide. Max stood beside Sarah and Lisa as they presented the data from the first year of the Max protocol's implementation. Departments using his methods reported a 70% increase in successful evidence preservation and a 85% improvement in community trust ratings. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Lisa explained, gesturing to Max. What he teaches us about resilience, ethical commitment, and the healing power of purpose. These changes go beyond statistics. Hit that notification bell because the next phase of Max's journey is about to transform international peacekeeping operations in ways nobody expected. Back in Cedar Grove, the Chen Max Foundation had become a global training hub. Police dogs and their handlers arrived from around the world, each leaving with lessons that transcended traditional canine training. Max doesn't just teach techniques, observed a handler from Japan's police force. He shows us how to build true partnerships based on mutual trust and shared values. Tommy Henderson, now 12, had started a youth program called Max's Messengers, teaching kids about integrity and courage through Max's story. The program had already spread to schools across 3 continents. When I tell people how Max stayed loyal to his mission for 6 years, even while being chained up, they understand that doing the right thing isn't about getting rewards, Tommy explained to a visiting school group. It's about staying true to what you believe in. Sarah watched as Max worked with a group of dogs being trained for conflict zone deployment. His ability to teach complex decision-making in high-stress situations had caught the attention of international peacekeeping forces. He's showing them how to maintain their training and purpose even in the most difficult circumstances, Sarah explained to UN observers. These dogs might face situations where they have to make independent ethical decisions, just like Max did. The German Shepherd's therapy work had evolved too. Veterans with PTSD, children who had survived abuse, and even other police dogs, traumatized in the line of duty, found healing through his gentle guidance. Max understands trauma in a way humans can't fully grasp, Dr. Martinez noted during a psychiatric conference. He knows the path from survival to service, from victim to healer. As spring turned toward summer, Max's influence continued to ripple outward. The old chains that had bound him for 6 years had been transformed into a powerful symbol, melted down and reforged into medallions for graduates of his training program. Each medallion carried an inscription that captured the heart of Max's legacy. Courage chains us to our duty, but love sets us free to serve. The German Shepherd, who had once been a prisoner of corruption, was now liberating others from their own chains, showing them that the darkest experiences could become the brightest lights, guiding others toward hope. United Nations peacekeepers in conflict zones around the world were reporting unprecedented breakthroughs. Dogs trained under the Max protocol were doing more than just detecting threats. They were actively preventing violence and protecting vulnerable communities in ways that redefined the role of K9 units in peacekeeping operations. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe, because what these brave dogs accomplished will restore your faith in humanity. It started with one German shepherd who chose duty over fear, explained Colonel Maria Santos, head of UN peacekeeping K9 operations. Now we're seeing that same spirit of ethical courage spreading across our global missions. Max, now a distinguished figure in international law enforcement, worked closely with the peacekeeping training program. His methods of teaching dogs to make independent ethical decisions had proven particularly valuable in complex humanitarian situations. These dogs aren't just following orders, Sarah explained during a training session. They're assessing situations, making moral judgments, and often finding peaceful solutions where humans see only conflict. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, because tomorrow we'll show you how Max's peacekeeping methods prevented a crisis that could have sparked an international incident. Back at the Chen Max Foundation, Lisa was documenting remarkable changes in how communities responded to police dogs trained under Max's protocol. The fear barrier is breaking down, she noted. People see these dogs as guardians of justice, not just tools of enforcement. Tommy Henderson's Max's Messengers program had evolved into an international youth leadership initiative. Max shows us that strength isn't about power, Tommy told a group of students from a conflict zone. It's about staying good even when everything around you isn't. The German Shepherd's influence on international policy continued to grow. The United Nations had adopted the Max standard for police dog deployment in sensitive diplomatic situations, emphasizing ethical decision-making and community trust building. What Max teaches goes beyond law enforcement, observed Ambassador Chen from the UN Human Rights Council. He shows us how to transform past suffering into future protection for others. Sarah watched as Max worked with a new group of international K9 teams. His gentle yet authoritative presence drew out the best in both dogs and handlers, showing them how to balance power with compassion. He leads by example, a handler from Brazil remarked. 6 years in chains could have made him bitter or aggressive. Instead, it made him wise and compassionate. That's what he teaches our dogs and us. The Foundation's rehabilitation program had expanded to include dogs rescued from conflict zones. Max worked with each one, showing them how to move past trauma and find new purpose in serving others. Chief Torres, speaking at an international police conference, summed up Max's impact. He's not just changing how we train dogs, he's changing how we think about justice, duty, and the healing power of unconditional service. As summer approached, the German Shepherd's legacy continued to evolve. The chains that had once bound him had become a symbol of transformation worldwide, teaching others that limitations could become launching points for positive change. Max's journey from captive witness to international peacekeeper proved that the greatest power lies not in the ability to control, but in the choice to protect and serve despite personal cost. The State Department's diplomatic reception hall had never hosted a four-legged ambassador before. But on this historic summer evening, Max's presence brought together representatives from nations that rarely sat at the same table, all united by the remarkable impact of his training methods on international peace efforts. If you're just joining us, hit subscribe, because what this extraordinary German Shepherd accomplished in global diplomacy will leave you speechless. In areas where human peacekeepers face cultural or political barriers, Dogs trained under the Max Protocol are building trust and preventing conflicts, Secretary of State Anderson explained. They're becoming bridges between divided communities. Max, his bearing both dignified and approachable, demonstrated his diplomatic skills as he moved among the gathered officials. Even representatives from countries with historical tensions found common ground in their admiration for his methods. He teaches dogs to be peacemakers, not just peacekeepers, Lisa explained to the assembled diplomats. The same qualities that helped him protect the truth through years of confinement now help other dogs protect communities in conflict zones. Make sure to hit that like button, because the diplomatic breakthrough Max inspired is about to change how nations work together to fight global corruption. Back in Cedar Grove, the Chen Max Foundation had become an unofficial diplomatic hub. Police officials from countries that rarely cooperated were now working together, sharing resources and intelligence through their K9 programs. Tommy Henderson, addressing a youth peace conference via video link, shared how Max's example was inspiring a new generation. He shows us that the strongest response to evil isn't hatred, it's staying true to what's right and helping others do the same. Sarah watched as Max worked with a special unit being prepared for deployment to a sensitive border region. The German Shepherd's methods of non-aggressive conflict resolution had proven particularly valuable in disputed territories. These dogs aren't just preventing violence, observed UN Peace Ambassador Rodriguez. They're showing humans how to move past old grievances and work together for a greater good. The impact on international law enforcement cooperation was unprecedented. Countries that had previously been hesitant to share intelligence were now establishing joint K9 units, using Max's training protocols as a foundation for trust building. He creates neutral ground, Chief Torres explained during a global security conference. When you see a dog who endured 6 years of chains, without losing his commitment to justice, it puts human conflicts in perspective. Max's therapy work had expanded to include international reconciliation programs. Former adversaries found healing through working together with dogs trained in his methods, learning to trust again through shared purpose. Dr. Martinez, documenting the psychological impact, noted, Max shows us that the capacity to forgive and protect, even after suffering, isn't just admirable, it's transformative for entire communities. As summer bloomed in Cedar Grove, the German Shepherd's influence continued to cross borders and break down barriers. His journey from chained witness to international peacemaker proved that the deepest wounds could become the strongest foundations for building bridges between divided peoples. The chains that had bound him for 6 years now served as a powerful metaphor for transforming instruments of oppression into tools for liberation and unity. The late summer sun cast long shadows across the Chen Max Foundation's new international training center, where something unprecedented was taking place. Max, the German Shepherd who had once been chained in a backyard for 6 years, was now overseeing a groundbreaking humanitarian program that brought together rescue dogs and child survivors of conflict zones. Before we reveal the incredible impact of this program, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's video will show you how Max's methods are healing wounds that seemed impossible to mend. What makes Max unique isn't just his training methods. Sarah explained to a group of international observers, it's his ability to recognize trauma in others and show them a path to healing through service. He's been there himself. The Foundation's latest initiative, Guardians of Hope, paired rescued dogs trained under Max's protocol with children who had survived situations of abuse or conflict. The results were transforming how experts thought about trauma recovery. Max understands something we're just beginning to grasp, Dr. Emily Chen explained, watching the German Shepherd guide a formerly aggressive dog in a gentle interaction with a traumatized child. Healing happens faster when those who have been hurt find purpose in helping others heal. Hit that notification bell, because what these children and dogs accomplish together will bring tears to your eyes. Tommy Henderson, now helping coordinate youth programs at the foundation, saw something of his own journey in each new child who arrived. When I first met Max during the fire, I was scared and confused about everything happening with my grandfather, he shared. Max showed me that bad experiences don't have to make you a bad person. Lisa Cooper watched as the German Shepherd moved between different groups, his presence bringing calm and focus wherever he went. The scars from his years in chains had faded, but the wisdom they'd taught him continued to help others find their way out of darkness. "He's creating a new kind of healing community," she observed. "One where past trauma becomes a source of strength and understanding for helping others." The impact reached beyond individual recovery. Communities torn apart by violence were beginning to heal, as children and dogs trained under Max's protocol showed them new ways to rebuild trust and connection. "What we're seeing is evolution in real time," Chief Torres told a documentary crew. "Max isn't just changing how we think about police dogs or therapy animals. He's showing us how to transform suffering into a force for positive change." As evening approached, Max made his rounds of the Foundation's rehabilitation kennels, checking on each dog, as he had done every day since his own liberation. His gentle authority and unwavering compassion continued to guide others from survival to service. The German Shepherd, who had protected the truth through 6 years of chains, was now teaching others that the deepest scars could become the strongest bonds, connecting those who choose to heal by helping others heal. Harvard Medical School's prestigious Trauma Research Center had never before focused its annual symposium on the therapeutic methods of a dog. But on this autumn morning, leading psychiatrists and neurologists gathered to analyze what they called the Max methodology, a revolutionary approach to trauma recovery that began with one German Shepherd's extraordinary journey from victim to healer. If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe, because the medical breakthroughs inspired by Max's work are changing how we understand healing itself. Traditional trauma therapy focuses on processing past events, Dr. Rachel Martinez explained. To the assembled researchers, what Max shows us is that healing accelerates when survivors find purpose in helping others heal. The German Shepherd, grey now touching his muzzle, but his bearing still noble, demonstrated his approach with a group of therapy dogs in training. His method of gentle guidance, allowing each dog to find its own path while providing steady support, had revolutionized animal-assisted therapy. "He's not just teaching them techniques," Sarah observed. "He's showing them how to transform their own trauma into understanding that helps others." Don't forget to hit that like button, because what these discoveries mean for trauma survivors will give you hope for humanity. Back at the Foundation, Lisa was documenting unprecedented success rates in their rehabilitation programs. Max proves that the deepest wounds can become the greatest sources of healing power, she explained to visiting medical professionals. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He teaches by example that survival isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new mission. Tommy, working on a school project about Max's impact, had uncovered something remarkable. The dogs and people who graduate from Max's program don't just get better themselves, he reported. They go on to help others heal. It's like a chain reaction of healing. The implications for human psychology were profound. Max's success in helping both animals and humans move from trauma to purposeful service was challenging fundamental assumptions about recovery. He shows us that healing isn't just about getting past trauma. Dr. Chen noted, watching Max work with a recently rescued dog. It's about finding meaning in the experience that allows you to help others who are still suffering. Chief Torres, speaking at a mental health conference, shared how Max's methods had transformed police crisis response. He teaches us that the strongest way to protect others is to first understand their pain. His 6 years in chains gave him that understanding. The German Shepherd's evening routine now included special sessions with the most traumatized new arrivals. His patience and wisdom, earned through years of suffering, created a safe space for others to begin their journey from victim to protector. As autumn leaves fell around the Foundation's expanding campus, Max's legacy continued to evolve. The chains that had once bound him had become powerful symbols of transformation, teaching others that limitations could become launching points for healing and growth. His journey from chained witness to healing teacher proved that the deepest pain, when transformed by love and purpose, could become the most powerful medicine for a wounded world. The World Health Organization's conference hall in Geneva buzzed with anticipation. On the giant screen, footage played of Max working with trauma survivors from conflict zones around the globe. The German Shepherd's methods had sparked what medical professionals were calling a paradigm shift in trauma recovery. If you're just joining us, hit subscribe, because what this extraordinary dog discovered about healing is changing lives across the globe. We're seeing recovery rates that defy conventional wisdom, announced Dr. Alexandra Santos, head of WHO's Trauma Research Division. Max's approach of channeling past trauma into present service is rewriting our understanding of psychological healing. Sarah watched as the presentation showed clips of Max's latest work, scenes of the German Shepherd guiding former combat dogs in working with child refugees, his gentle presence bridging gaps that human therapists couldn't cross. He speaks a language of survival that transcends words, Lisa explained to the international audience. When you've spent 6 years chained but kept your spirit intact, you understand something profound about resilience. Make sure to hit that notification bell, because tomorrow's video reveals how Max's methods saved an entire refugee camp from a crisis no one saw coming. At the Foundation, a new program called Chains to Change was transforming how trauma survivors viewed their experiences. Max worked with both animals and humans, showing them how their darkest moments could become their greatest strengths. He teaches us that scars aren't just marks of what we've survived, Tommy shared during a youth leadership conference. They're maps showing others the way to survival too. The impact on international humanitarian work was profound. Relief organizations were incorporating Max's methods into their emergency response protocols, using dogs trained in his approach to help stabilize crisis situations. What Max demonstrates isn't just therapy, Dr. Martinez observed. It's a completely new understanding of how trauma can become a force for healing when given proper purpose and direction. Sarah noticed how Max's own bearing had evolved over the years. The watchful alertness that had helped him survive 6 years of chains had transformed into a deep wisdom that drew others toward healing. He reads trauma like we read books, a visiting psychologist noted, but more importantly, he shows others how to rewrite their own stories. The Foundation's work with international peacekeeping forces had expanded to include trauma recovery for both human personnel and their canine partners. Max's presence during these sessions brought a depth of understanding that no human trainer could match. As winter approached Cedar Grove once again, the German Shepherd's influence continued to ripple outward. His journey from chained survivor to global healer had become a blueprint for transforming society's understanding of trauma and recovery. The old chains that had bound him, now preserved in the Foundation's museum, stood as powerful symbols of how the tools of oppression could be transformed into instruments of liberation. 10 years had passed since the night of the Henderson house fire. Cedar Grove had transformed from a town shadowed by corruption into an international symbol of healing and justice. At the center of this transformation, a German shepherd whose silver-muzzled face had become known across the world, continued his daily rounds with the same quiet dignity that had sustained him through 6 years of chains. Before we reveal the lasting impact of Max's legacy, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's final chapter will show you something that will touch your heart forever. On this crisp autumn evening, Sarah and Max walked their familiar patrol, a route passing the spot where the Henderson house once stood. The property had become the heart of the Chen Max Foundation's global campus, its training fields and healing centers sprawling across the once neglected land. "Remember that night, boy," Sarah whispered, watching Max pause at the exact spot where he'd once been chained. The German shepherd's eyes held the same intelligence that had caught her attention a decade ago, but now there was something more, a profound peace that came from a life dedicated to helping others heal. Don't forget to hit that like button, because what happened next proved that sometimes the greatest miracles come full circle. Lisa Cooper, organizing the Foundation's 10th anniversary celebration, had gathered statistics that staggered even those who knew Max's story well. Over 10,000 dogs rehabilitated, countless lives saved, and healing methods that had changed trauma recovery worldwide. But numbers can't capture his real impact. Tommy Henderson, now a tall teenager, told the documentary crew filming the anniversary special. "Max showed us that the worst things that happen to you can become the best things you do for others." The Foundation had become a beacon of hope, drawing visitors from every corner of the globe. World leaders sought Max's counsel on humanitarian crisis response, medical researchers studied his methods, and trauma survivors found hope in his example. Chief Torres, his hair now grey like Max's muzzle, reflected on the decade of change. "We thought we were just rescuing a chained dog that night," he said, watching Max work with a group of therapy dogs. "Instead, we found a teacher who would show the world how to transform chains of suffering into bonds of healing." The German shepherd's daily routine had adapted to his senior years, but his presence remained as powerful as ever. Each morning he still inspected the training fields, supervised therapy sessions, and welcomed new arrivals with the same gentle authority that had guided thousands toward healing. Sarah noticed how Max always paid special attention to the most traumatized newcomers, as if he remembered his own journey from captive to healer. His method of quiet presence and patient guidance had become a model for trauma recovery programs worldwide. As the sun set over Cedar Grove, casting long shadows across the Foundation's grounds, Max made his final rounds of the day. The German shepherd, who had once spent 6 years chained in darkness, now moved freely under the open sky, his legacy of healing touching lives across continents. The chains that had bound him had been transformed into something powerful, not just symbols of survival, but tools for teaching others how to turn their darkest moments into light for those still finding their way toward hope. As the Chen Max Foundation prepared for its 10th anniversary celebration, a special ceremony was taking place in the Memorial Garden. Here, where Max had once been chained for 6 long years, gathered people from around the world whose lives had been touched by one remarkable German shepherd's journey from captive to healer. If you've been moved by Max's story, make sure to subscribe, because his legacy continues to inspire new miracles every day. Sarah watched as Max, his movement slower now but his spirit as strong as ever, greeted each arrival personally. Former police dogs he'd rehabilitated, children he'd helped heal, officers he'd trained, all had come to honor the dog who'd shown them how to transform and pain into purpose. 10 years ago, we thought we were witnessing a rescue, Lisa Cooper addressed the gathered crowd. What we actually saw was the beginning of a revolution in how we understand healing, justice, and the unbreakable spirit of those who choose to serve others despite their own suffering. Tommy Henderson, standing tall beside the German shepherd who had saved him from the fire a decade ago, spoke next. Max didn't just survive being chained. He turned those chains into a bridge that others could cross from darkness into light. Hit that notification bell, because the impact of Max's legacy is still unfolding in ways that will amaze you. As twilight settled over Cedar Grove, Chief Torres revealed something that brought tears to many eyes. The International Police K-9 Association had created a new highest honor, the Max Medal of Courage, crafted from the very chains that had once bound him, would recognize dogs who demonstrated extraordinary ethical courage in service to others. Dr. Martinez shared the latest research, showing how Max's methods had revolutionized trauma recovery worldwide. His approach teaches us that our deepest wounds can become our greatest gifts to others if we choose to use them in service of healing. The German shepherd sat quietly through the ceremonies, his noble bearing unchanged by age or acclaim. As night fell, Sarah noticed him gazing at the stars with the same patient wisdom that had helped him protect the truth through 6 years of chains. Max shows us that true freedom isn't about escaping our past, Lisa observed, watching him with the newest group of rescue dogs. It's about transforming it into a light that helps others find their way forward. The Foundation's global impact continued to grow, with new centers opening across continents. But here in Cedar Grove, where it all began, Max's evening rounds remained the heart of everything they did. Every night he still checked on each dog in rehabilitation, spent time with trauma survivors in recovery, and patrolled the grounds that had once been his prison. But now, these rounds were acts of celebration, proof that love could triumph over cruelty, that purpose could emerge from pain. As the anniversary celebration concluded, Sarah walked with Max to their favorite spot, overlooking the Foundation's grounds. The German shepherd, who had once been chained in darkness, now stood bathed in starlight, his legacy of healing stretching far beyond the horizons they could see. The chains that had bound him had become keys unlocking hope for others. The fire that had freed him had ignited a worldwide movement of healing, and the loyalty that had kept him strong through 6 years of confinement now inspired others to transform their own struggles into service. Max's story wasn't just about one dog's journey from victim to hero. It was proof that the deepest darkness can't chain a heart determined to shine light for others. His legacy lived on in every life touched, every soul healed, and every heart that chose, like him, to transform suffering into service. As the stars shone down on Cedar Grove, Max's quiet wisdom continued to teach the world that true heroism isn't about escaping chains. It's about showing others how to turn their chains into wings. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.